What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here. I look like an orange cone or a pylon or whatever you call it wherever you're from. And that's because I've been doing a bunch of construction, demolition, emergency repair work on the deck project that some of you have seen a vlog on. That's also why my hair is a mess and I look like crap. Because It's a long story. The people who built this house did a really bad thing, and I spent 7 hours repairing a potentially very dangerous thing to my house that I wasn't planning to do. That was like the furthest thing from my mind, and it's dominated most of my day and night. But that being said, a new video came out called What Are the 2024 5th Edition Core Rulebooks? This is from the Wizards of the Coast YouTube channel. I have not watched this yet. It is 12 minutes long, so we will watch it at regular time because it's a short video. And my camera doesn't seem to know how to deal with fluorescent. The white balance is all over the place, but it is what it is. And also, yeah, wearing high-vis clothes reminds me of when I used to work in construction. It gets me in a construction mindset, so that's why I do it. So anyway, let's watch this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Here we go. First time watching it, let's learn together.
Obviously, a lot of people are very curious, and you've kind of spoken to this multiple times before, but with Unearthed Arcana and with the new Player's Handbook coming out, the new Dungeon Master's Guide, how is this going to be compatible with 5th edition? It is 5th edition.
Oh, we're hitting this is the big one. Okay.
Yeah, these books are a continuation of the edition we've all been playing since 2014 that has continued to grow. It's vibrant, it's healthy. And so our goal is to prepare the game for its next decade. And we're doing that.
Is that a flat out open admission that we are going to have 5e for another 10 years? Because, I mean, he said for the next decade, that could be hyperbole. But this would be the first time. I mean, we're coming up on the first time I think we've ever had an edition last like 10 years outside of maybe like Advanced, possibly. But we're looking at a 20-year time frame. That's wild. All right. I mean, I guess in theory your investments are well placed if it's going to last you 20 years.
As we did 10 years ago when we launched 5th edition, by having an extended conversation with the broader D&D community through the Unearthed Arcana process. Our end goal is that we will include in the 2024 rulebooks all the best elements of the 2014 rulebooks, along with new material and also old material that has been refined. And what we're doing through this Unearthed Arcana process is really zeroing in on what new things and what changed old things excite people, resonate with people, and then we will take those things and incorporate them into the game. And then things that aren't exciting a large number of people or otherwise resonating with the broader D&D community, those things, as we often do in the Unearthed Arcana process, we will leave and not carry those forward. And so what that means is throughout this process, we started being very experimental. We started with rules that you and I have even talked about. We didn't even necessarily expect the community to embrace, but we wanted to see the reaction. We wanted to see what is the community's appetite for change. And then again, when it comes to change or told new things, what are the things that really cause people's eyes to light up, that cause people to be excited? And now that we have released playtest versions of all of the classes in the game, save the monk, who will be coming very soon, we're actually nearing the end of the first chapter of our playtest process, which was the sort of, let's see what the appetite for change is. People are then going to see in the upcoming Unearthed Arcanas a return to many familiar things from the 2014 books,
Like what?
but now with some of the new material incorporated.
Subclass?
Here's a concrete example.
Thank you.
We've been experimenting with subclass progression. And we've talked before that one of our main goals is to make it so that you don't have to pick a subclass at first level. Well, in the process of
know what this is gonna
exploring
be.
that
It's gonna
goal,
be a new
we also thought, what would it look like if all subclasses progressed at the same levels? Those are actually
Oh.
two different design goals for us, or two different design explorations, rather.
Wait.
And what we have found is that the one that's more important to us, of opening up levels 1 and 2 as truly sort of, getting your feet
Starter
wet
levels,
levels in
yeah.
each class, that has been landing well. The normalization of the subclass progression, while interesting and appealing to some people, really is not lighting anyone's world on fire in a positive way. But it's also not drawing negative reaction. But as you and I have talked about before, what we want is delight. And so if the response to something is largely meh, well, then we're leaving it behind. And so you're actually going to see in the very next Unearthed Arcana, when we revisit the experts and the priests, their old subclass progressions are going to be back.
Whoa.
But without subclasses on first or second level.
So what he's saying, if I'm understanding, so right now all of the current subclass progression is that things happen at the same levels. So he's saying they're basically going to be keeping subclass starts at third level, but the subclass progression will remain the same. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the rogue, because I said the experts and the priests. So the rogue is going to get, it's roguish. Oh, that's a bad example because the rogue already gets their stuff. Silly me. Let's go with, they said the priests. So the cleric, the druid. All right. So if we look at the cleric, they got subclass features at 1 and 2. So now they're going to get one at 3, then at 6, 8, and 17. Whereas the rogue will continue with 3, 9, 13, and 17. The druid is going to be funky because we got it at 2. So it's going to get it at 3, 6, 10, and 14. And then what about the bard? Because the bard was missing a subclass feature, if you recall. Bards, if you look at their progression, it was 3, 6, and 14. Yeah. I'm curious, like, I don't know, if you're going to standardize subclass progression, why not just keep it standardized? It doesn't really bother me. I guess the opportunity would be if you're at the table and someone's playing a rogue and someone's playing a cleric and someone's playing a bard, then not everybody's going to get like, oh, cool, level 7, what subclass feature are you getting? There's like variability in it, I guess, but I don't know. Okay, let's keep going.
So suddenly you're going to see us moving to a point where it's going to be easier and easier to even just point at and say, oh yeah, that's the thing that changed there. But then here are all the things that are exactly as we've been playing them since 2014.
Oh,
so this is all a part of the process
align it.
as we move toward, sort of refining, finding all the best parts as we build the 2024 versions of the books, with the goal that they will be usable with the 5th edition adventures you have now. You'll be able to open up Curse of Strahd, Princes of the Apocalypse, any of our others, and play them with these new books.
Now notice, I think that was intentional. He specifically said that it will be playable with our adventures. Now, it's supposed to be fully backwards compatible, as we know, But it's interesting that this is the first time we've heard them specifically reference that it will be backwards compatible with the adventures, meaning, which it kind of, D&D has always been, hell, I mean, D&D 5e is backwards compatible more or less with the first edition adventure with a little bit of tweaking, right? The story is the story. You could write this without any mechanics and just come up with like a general thing, and then that you fit it to the system that you're using. Uh, but will it be truly integrated with the monster books, the magic items, all that other stuff? Uh, so I guess my takeaway from that is everything's shifting to 3 as the starting level, but then all the other subclass progression levels for the different subclasses are going to remain the same in theory, so that you can look at it and be like, okay, this is the one thing they changed, so that it's easier for you to, if you wanted to play a subclass from a previous, the existing 2014 version or something like that, or you were used to playing the existing version of the Thief from 2014 and you want to transition to playing it with the 2024 version, it'd be an easier transition for you because the features you're expecting will appear subclass wise anyway at the same levels. The only thing that's tricky is like, what about the Paladin, whose current capstone subclass feature is at level 20? You specifically, unless they're going to change that too, because they did say they were making the point of making all of the capstone abilities for the classes go at 18, and then 20 was this new get a bonus to an ability score and an epic boon. Paladin subclass final subclass feature comes online at level 20. So I'm curious how they're going to manage that.
Why was this important for the design team to make sure that all that content still worked together? Like, why not do another edition? Like, what was about 5th edition you wanted to maintain?
So 5th edition continues to grow. So there is no reason for us to stop it, and all sorts of reasons for us to continue it. People are continuing to discover the game, love the game. We see, the family of D&D just with each year gets larger and larger. And so what that signaled to us is it wasn't time to stop that, but rather time to sort of check in on the game, see how we can bring the most important books of the game, the 3 core books, up to sort of the current state of the art, incorporate things that we've all learned about the game over the last 8 years, so that those most important books can be in their best shape as we embark on what I hope will be the next 10 years for 5th edition. So again, in the
So there he said what he hopes would be the next 10 years, so maybe not a hard number.
process, we're doing experimentation, we're checking in to see how best can we address some of the squeaky wheels in the game, how best can we introduce new options that will set us up for new design explorations in the next 10 years, because also some of this design is aimed toward that, because we have some things we want to explore in the years ahead, and tweaking some of the things in the core game will make those explorations even smoother.
Interesting.
All again, checking in with the community as we go to see, what are you liking? What would you rather us leave behind? What do you love? What do you want us to protect and carry forward? And in the end, the books themselves will tell you how they work with the 5th edition books you already have. Books that, by the way, continue to sell well. That's another reason why we don't want to invalidate the 5th edition libraries that people already have, because people are still buying Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
People are still going and looking for a copy of The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. New groups are discovering Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel and starting their campaigns. We want to keep that going, and again, get the core books in the best shape they can be for the next phase of this edition, while allowing all of those other fun books to continue to be used.
Focusing on the design needs of the players seems like the focus of all of this.
Absolutely.
And just kind of this core advantage of, yeah, but you can do all this playtesting, but you've had 10 years of playtesting for 5th edition, so it's a good time to update. So we've been talking about the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual and all the core rule books, and we're identifying them as kind of 2024. The 2024 Player's Handbook, the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Why the sudden focus specifically on the year?
So in our internal design discussions for almost 3 years now, we have been using the year designations to differentiate between the different versions of the 5th edition rulebooks as we've been working on new versions. And so to make it clear for ourselves which version that we're talking about, we will talk about the 2014 Player's Handbook and then talk then about what we might be doing the same or differently in the 2024 Player's Handbook. So we have found that just for ourselves, talking about the release year is a great way to be clear about which versions of the core books we're talking about that are basically different versions of the core books for 5th edition. So, we need to be able to talk about different rule books over the course of a long-lived edition. And we found, at least internally, that referring to them by year is, for us, the best way to make it crystal clear what we're talking about.
I mean, I talked about this. This is the concept of like when you get a new movie comes out and it's the same name as an existing movie and you have to refer to it by its year moniker, right? Like, are you talking about, I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I guess Ghostbusters. Are you talking about 1984 or 2016 or whatever it is? Something where a movie comes out with the exact same name and they don't change the tagline or like give it a sub name. So you have to refer to it. Which one are you talking about? I guess in theory, yeah, that's there you go. I just have to remember what I was gonna say at the end.
Me and other members of the content team knows that there is some capitalization changes in Unearthed Arcana or differences from how capitalization is done in the core rule books. Can you explain that?
So as a part of the Unearthed Arcana process, we have been, in addition to exploring new potential directions with certain rules, we're also exploring different ways of writing the rules. And one of those explorations that we've embarked on last year and have been continuing is looking at what do we capitalize and what do we not capitalize. And we started early on in the Player's Handbook Unearthed Arcana series capitalizing a whole lot of terms. We've actually reduced the number of terms in the playtest process that we capitalize, but it's still more than people are used to seeing in the 2014 core rulebooks. And the direction we're headed in is definitely more capitalization than what was in the game previously, because it helps signal to the reader when are they reading a proper noun, the name of something, versus just a general English word. For a great example of this is when we give you the name of a condition. When we say poisoned, for instance, we don't just mean poisoned in the English sense. We're actually giving you the name of a game object. And as soon as you see that capital P on poisoned, that helps signal to you,
The mechanic and
I'm seeing the name of something which I should now go look up. Or if I already know how it works, I don't have to go look it up. But the key is the text signaled to me, here's a game term that's important to my understanding of the rule that I'm reading.
All right. So the thing I wanted to say is, I mean, okay, that is what it is. I didn't know. I mean, I guess the capitalization thing's kind of cool. I guess. I don't know. It doesn't really, like, that wasn't even something I noticed, to be honest with you. So they refer to it as the moniker by the year, which is pretty much how the community is, right? 2024 Player's Handbook, 2014 Player's Handbook. And The best way I could think to try to describe, I think, what they're trying to do, or what they ultimately like maybe might help people wrap their head around, is that this has been a game that's been out for 10 years, and they're now kind of transitioning D&D 5e to like, I don't know, call it like a live service game, right? As opposed to so like they realize that there's stuff going on in the game that's a little bit wonky, and they're going to drop an update to the game in the form of the 2024 books. It's not like they're making a new edition, which would be kind of like adding an expansion or an entirely new game, like the sequel to it, right? It's not like they're doing that. They're just dumping an update into the existing game to revamp it. So I'm sure you all have had a video game that you've played at some point that is a longer running game, and then they update, make like they drop like a big update in the game, and it like fundamentally changes the game. It's like a big, whether it's a free update or part of like a seasonal model update, but it's not like a brand new expansion or a whole sequel to the game. It's just in an update in some form. And I think that's more or less kind of a good way to try to if you're having trouble understanding what they're doing. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. It is weird to me, like that they're so dead set on it not being just like a 5.5. And like we're just gonna continue to call it 5e. I mean, it's a money thing, right? I mean, they said it in so many words. Like people are still buying 5e. And if people are still buying 5e, it doesn't make sense to split that market, right? 5e is successful. Nobody can doubt that. It's been very successful. And they're continuing to be successful and make money from people buying adventures and probably books, right? I mean, you buy a player's handbook one time, but you can still buy new adventures and stuff like that, or new groups looking to run something new, especially if they're not into homebrew. You're going to just go out and buy a campaign maybe. But yeah, like I said, ultimately it comes down to money. If 5e's sales were waning significantly, yeah, we probably would have gotten a 6th edition. But they're like, we're doing so good. How do we keep. We're getting new people. That's the thing. We know that. How do we keep the veterans here? We'll just update the rules and give them a little bit of like a software patch coming into the game in the form of a software patch that you have to rebuy. And it'll be totally compatible. You can go stay with vanilla if you want, but if you want to have the new hotness, you go buy the new books. But it'll work backwards compatible with vanilla. But we got to do that to keep the veterans here, while the newcomers are still just going to keep coming. And if there's newcomers that come on in 2024 or beyond, they'll likely just buy the new stuff out the gate and won't even know that vanilla existed in the first place. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Did you get anything useful out of this? I mean, we do know that the monk is coming soon, and that we're also going to start to see the revised versions of the classes we saw first. Interesting that we're going to get the experts and the priests so soon. I feel like the expert classes, God, what was that, October? I feel like we got those, the original like Bard, Ranger, and Rogue. I'm very curious to see what they changed, because I thought the Bard and the Rogue were very solid, like with what they had, and I thought the Ranger was again better than it was, but needs a little bit of help. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and I'll see you all next time.